This video is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional before making any health-related decision.
At some point in life, many people notice a quiet shift. They go to bed at the same hour they always have, yet sleep feels thinner, lighter, more fragile. They wake before dawn without an alarm. They drift in and out of rest as though the night itself has changed its texture. The question often follows, why does sleep feel different now? The answer begins not in willpower or habit, but in biology. Aging reshapes the architecture of sleep in subtle yet measurable ways. The brain, which once descended easily into long stretches of deep, restorative rest, gradually alters its rhythm. This is not dysfunction. It is transformation. In younger years, sleep unfolds in predictable cycles composed of light sleep, deep slow wave sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. Deep slow wave sleep is particularly important. It is during this phase that growth hormone is released, tissues repair, immune regulation strengthens, and the brain clears metabolic waste. With age, however, the proportion of time spent in deep sleep naturally declines. The brain does not abandon rest, rather, it redistributes it. Older adults spend more time in later stages of sleep, making them more sensitive to sound, temperature changes, or internal discomfort. At the same time, melatonin production gradually decreases. Melatonin is often described as the hormone of darkness. As evening falls, its levels rise, signaling to the body that it is time to prepare for rest. In later life, this signal becomes softer. The pineal gland releases smaller amounts, and the timing of that release may shift earlier. This partly explains why many seniors feel sleepy in the early evening and wake earlier in the morning. The internal clock has subtly advanced. That internal clock resides in a small region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It responds primarily to light exposure. Over decades, its sensitivity to environmental cues can diminish. The neurons that once synchronized effortlessly with sunrise and sunset may respond less robustly. As a result, circadian rhythms, the roughly 24-hour cycles governing sleep, hormone release, and body temperature, lose some amplitude. The highs are not as high, and the lows are not as low. The rhythm remains, but its signal weakens. Core body temperature, another regulator of sleep timing, also shifts with age. Normally, body temperature drops in the evening to facilitate sleep onset and rises toward morning to promote wakefulness. In older adults, this temperature rhythm becomes less pronounced. The decline in evening temperature may not be as strong, making it slightly harder for the brain to transition into deeper stages of rest. These biological changes create what researchers call sleep fragmentation. Older individuals may fall asleep without difficulty, but wake more frequently throughout the night. Each awakening may be brief, sometimes not even remembered in the morning, yet enough to prevent sustained deep sleep. The night becomes segmented rather than continuous. Importantly, total sleep need does not dramatically decrease with age. Most older adults still require approximately 7 to 8 hours of sleep within a 24-hour period. However, achieving that sleep in one uninterrupted block becomes less common. Some compensate with short daytime naps. While modest napping can be restorative, excessive daytime sleep can further dilute nighttime sleep pressure, reinforcing the cycle of fragmentation. It is also essential to separate normal age-related changes from pathological insomnia. Waking earlier, experiencing lighter sleep, or noticing more awakenings can be entirely consistent with healthy aging. Distress arises when these changes are misinterpreted as abnormal, or when anxiety about sleep amplifies the problem. The brain is sensitive to expectation. If one begins to fear the night, stress hormones rise, and sleep becomes even more elusive. There is a quiet reassurance in understanding that these shifts are rooted in physiology rather than personal inadequacy. The aging brain remains remarkably adaptive. Although deep sleep decreases, the brain continues to perform essential restorative functions. Neuroplasticity persists. Circadian rhythms can still be strengthened through consistent light exposure, structured routines, and supportive habits. Sleep in later life is not broken. It is recalibrated. It reflects decades of cellular experience, hormonal evolution, and neurological refinement. When we understand that aging naturally reshapes sleep architecture, we replace frustration with perspective. The goal is not to chase the sleep of youth, but to support the biology we have, honoring the body's changing rhythms, while gently guiding them towards stability and restoration. Pain has a way of speaking most clearly in the middle of the night. When the world grows quiet and distractions fade, the signals rising from joints, nerves, the heart, or the digestive tract become more noticeable. Many older adults do not lose sleep because their bodies have forgotten how to rest, but because their bodies are managing more complexity than before. Chronic medical conditions accumulate gradually across the lifespan. Arthritis stiffens the joints and inflames surrounding tissues. Cardiovascular disease alters circulation and breathing patterns. Diabetes shifts blood glucose levels unpredictably. Gastroesophageal reflux allows stomach acid to rise when lying flat. Each of these conditions can fragment sleep in subtle but measurable ways. Consider pain first. Pain is not simply a sensation, it is a neurological event. Specialized receptors detect tissue stress and signals through the spinal cord to the brain, where perception is shaped by attention and emotion. During the day, movement and mental engagement compete with pain signals. The brain in stillness, the brain has fewer competing inputs. The same joint discomfort that felt manageable at noon can feel amplified at 2 a.m. Even low-grade pain can prevent the descent into deep slow-wave sleep, keeping the brain in lighter, more fragile stages. Cardiovascular conditions also influence sleep architecture. In heart disease, the body may struggle to regulate fluid balance efficiently. When lying down, fluid redistributed from the legs can place subtle pressure on the lungs, leading to shortness of breath. Some individuals experience paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, waking abruptly with a sensation of breathlessness. Even less dramatic circulatory inefficiencies can increase nighttime awakenings without the person fully recognizing the cause. Sleep apnea becomes more prevalent with age as well. The muscles that maintain airway openness lose tone, and structural changes in the throat can narrow breathing passages. During apnea events, oxygen levels drop briefly, prompting microarousals so the brain can restore breathing. These awakenings may last only seconds, yet they repeatedly interrupt deep restorative stages. The individual may believe they slept through the night, yet awaken unrefreshed because their brain cycled repeatedly into alertness. Metabolic conditions such as diabetes introduce another layer of complexity. Blood glucose fluctuations can stimulate the nervous system. Hyperglycemia during the night may trigger sweating, trembling, or vivid dreams. Hyperglycemia can increase thirst and urination, forcing repeated trips to the bathroom. Each interruption resets the brain's progress through the sleep cycle, preventing sustained depth. The digestive system also exerts influence. Acid reflux often worsens when lying horizontally. The lower esophageal sphincter may relax more readily with age, allowing gastric contents to irritate the esophagus. Even mild reflux can create a burning sensation or coughing that disrupts sleep continuity. Some individuals unconsciously adjust position throughout the night in response to discomfort, further fragmenting rest. Then there are the medications prescribed to manage these conditions. Pharmacology, while therapeutic, often carries sleep-related side effects. Beta blockers used for blood pressure may suppress melatonin secretion. Diuretics increase nighttime urination. Corticosteroids elevate alertness and can disrupt REM sleep. Certain antidepressants alter sleep architecture by reducing rapid eye movement phases. Polypharmacy, the use of multiple medications, increases the probability of interactive effects that subtly alter circadian rhythm and neurochemistry. It becomes clear that sleep in later life is not isolated from overall health. It is deeply interwoven. Each organ system communicates with the brain through hormonal, neural, and inflammatory pathways. When inflammation rises, cytokines influence sleep regulation centers. When oxygen fluctuates, the brain's vigilance mechanisms activate. When glucose destabilizes, autonomic responses follow, yet within this complexity lies opportunity. Effective pain management, for instance, does more than relieve discomfort, it restores access to deeper sleep stages. Optimizing cardiovascular treatment can reduce nocturnal breathlessness. Continuous positive airway pressure therapy for sleep apnea dramatically improves oxygen stability and sleep continuity. Adjusting medication timing, such as taking diuretics earlier in the day, can minimize nighttime disruption. The key insight is that sleep disturbances in seniors are often secondary rather than primary. The night reflects the day's physiology. When clinicians and individuals view insomnia as a signal rather than an isolated problem, investigation becomes more precise. Instead of simply prescribing sedatives, attention turns to underlying mechanisms, oxygenation, metabolic balance, medication interactions. There is compassion in this approach. The aging body is not betraying itself, it is negotiating multiple demands simultaneously. Sleep becomes lighter not because it is less needed, but because the brain remains vigilant in managing internal signals. By stabilizing chronic conditions and thoughtfully reviewing pharmacological regimens, it is often possible to reduce microarousals and restore continuity. In this way, sleep transforms from a mysterious frustration into a measurable physiological outcome, one that responds not only to bedtime routines, but to comprehensive medical care that respects the intricate dialogue between body systems and the resting brain. Sometimes the body is tired, yet the mind refuses to dim. The lights are off, the room is still, but thoughts move with quiet persistence. For many older adults, nighttime wakefulness is not driven by pain or breathing difficulty, but by something less visible, the emotional transitions that accompany later life. Human sleep is not regulated by biology alone. It is profoundly shaped by psychology. The brain does not separate emotional processing from physical rest. Both unfold within the same neural networks. When emotional equilibrium shifts, sleep often follows. Retirement is one of the most underestimated transitions. For decades, the rhythm of life is externally structured, alarms ring, schedules dictate movement, responsibilities anchor attention. Work provides not only income, but identity, social interaction, and daily cognitive demand. When that structure dissolves, the circadian system can weaken. Without a consistent reason to wake at a fixed hour, sleep timing drifts, bedtimes become irregular, daytime activity may decline. The internal clock, which depends on routine, receives mixed signals. Beyond structure, retirement also alters self-perception. A person who once introduced themselves by profession may quietly wonder who they are without it. That question may not surface during busy daylight hours, but it can emerge at night when distractions fall away. The brain, wired for meaning-making, continues its search in the dark. Loneliness is another powerful variable. Social connection regulates emotional stability through neurochemical pathways involving oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. When companionship decreases, whether through relocation, reduced mobility, or the loss of peers, the emotional buffering these connections provide weakens. Studies show that perceived loneliness correlates strongly with fragmented sleep. The brain maintains a subtle state of vigilance when social safety feels uncertain. Evolutionarily, isolation once signaled vulnerability. That ancient circuitry still operates. Grief may be the most profound disruptor of all. The loss of a spouse, sibling, or lifelong friend reshapes daily existence. Grief does not follow a linear timeline, it ebbs and flows. During the day, tasks and interactions may soften its intensity. At night, memory becomes vivid. The bed itself can feel different when one side is empty. Emotional pain activates many of the same neural pathways as physical pain, increasing arousal and elevating stress hormones. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, follows a circadian rhythm. It should decline in the evening, allowing melatonin to rise. Chronic worry, however, can flatten this curve. When anxiety about health, finances, or independence persists, cortisol remains elevated longer than intended. Even subtle elevations can interfere with sleep onset and depth. The brain interprets stress as a signal that vigilance is required. Health anxiety deserves particular attention in later life. As medical appointments increase and new diagnoses appear, awareness of bodily sensations heightens. A normal heartbeat may suddenly feel suspicious. A minor ache may provoke disproportionate concern. Night. Without external reassurance, these thoughts can expand. The mind attempts to solve uncertainties, rehearsing scenarios that have no immediate resolution. There is also the phenomenon of conditioned arousal. After several nights of poor sleep, the bed itself may become associated with frustration. The brain learns quickly. If lying awake becomes routine, the nervous system begins to anticipate wakefulness. This anticipatory tension activates the sympathetic nervous system, increasing heart rate, tightening muscles, sharpening awareness, the very opposite of what sleep requires. Importantly, none of these processes imply weakness. They reflect the extraordinary sensitivity of the human brain to meaning and connection. Emotional transitions are not peripheral to health. They are central. Yet within this sensitivity lies adaptability. Emotional regulation skills can be strengthened at any age. Mindfulness practices reduce sympathetic activation and lower evening cortisol levels. Structured daytime activity restores a sense of purpose and reinforces circadian stability. Social engagement, even modest, a daily phone call, community group participation, shared meals can recalibrate neurochemical balance. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia has demonstrated that reshaping beliefs about sleep reduces nighttime anxiety. When individuals understand that occasional awakenings are normal, catastrophic thinking diminishes. The brain no longer interprets each waking moment as a crisis. Grief counseling and support groups provide space for emotional processing during the day, reducing the likelihood that unresolved feelings dominate the night. Journaling before bed can externalize worries, giving the mind permission to rest rather than rehearse. The essential insight is that nighttime wakefulness often unfinished emotional conversations of the day. Sleep does not exist apart from identity, connection, and meaning. As life changes, the psyche adjusts, and the night becomes a mirror of that adjustment. When we approach sleep problems in seniors through an emotional lens, we recognize that rest is not merely a biological event, but a state of psychological safety. The nervous system must feel secure enough to surrender consciousness. By addressing loneliness, anxiety, grief, and shifting identity with compassion and structure, the mind gradually relearns that darkness is not a threat, but a place where restoration is allowed to unfold. There is a quiet intelligence inside the human body that depends on rhythm. Every cell follows a pattern. Hormones rise and fall, temperature fluctuates, alertness peaks and softens. When that rhythm is reinforced, sleep arrives with surprising ease. When it weakens, the night becomes uncertain. In later life, often shift in ways that subtly disrupt circadian stability. The internal clock, already less robust with age, relies heavily on environmental cues. Light is the most powerful of these cues. Morning sunlight entering the eyes signals the brain that a new cycle has begun. It suppresses residual melatonin and anchors the timing of the next night's release. When older adults spend limited time outdoors, whether due to mobility issues, weather, or safety concerns, this anchoring signal weakens. The brain receives a dimmer message about when the day truly starts. Artificial lighting complicates the picture. Indoor illumination is typically far less intense than natural daylight. Even well-lit rooms rarely replicate the spectrum and brightness of the sun. As a result, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's timekeeper, receives insufficient stimulation. Over weeks and months, circadian amplitude decreases. Sleep timing drifts earlier or becomes irregular. Even light exposure introduces another variable. Screens emit blue wavelength light, which directly suppresses melatonin production. For seniors who watch television late into the night or use digital devices before bed, the hormonal signal for sleep may be delayed. The brain remains in a state of mild alertness, even if physical fatigue is present. Beyond light, activity level plays a central role. Sleep pressure builds through the accumulation of adenosine, a byproduct of cellular energy use. The more mentally and physically active a person is during the day, the greater the buildup of this sleep-promoting compound. In retirement, daily movement often declines. Without commuting, structured work tasks, or regular errands, energy expenditure drops. Reduced activity means reduced adenosine accumulation, which translates into weaker sleep drive at night. Daytime napping deserves careful consideration. Short naps can be restorative, especially when nighttime sleep has been fragmented. However, long or irregular naps dissipate sleep pressure. The brain partially satisfies its need for rest during the day, making it less prepared for consolidated sleep after sunset. This pattern can gradually fragment the night further, creating a cycle in which poor nighttime sleep leads to excessive daytime napping, which then undermines the following night. Meal timing also influences circadian rhythm. The digestive system operates on its own internal clock. Irregular eating schedules or heavy evening meals can shift metabolic signals that interact with sleep regulation. Late night eating stimulates insulin release and digestive activity when the body should be transitioning toward metabolic quiet. This internal activity can delay sleep onset and reduce depth. Caffeine and alcohol, though familiar, deserve nuanced understanding. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors, reducing perceived sleepiness even when physiological need is present. Older adults metabolize caffeine more slowly, meaning an afternoon cup of coffee may still exert influence at bedtime. Alcohol, often used as a sedative, initially promotes drowsiness but disrupts sleep later in the night. As blood alcohol levels fall, the brain rebounds into lighter, fragmented sleep stages. Physical exercise functions as a powerful stabilizer when timed appropriately. Morning or early afternoon movement enhances circadian alignment by reinforcing daytime alertness and increasing nighttime sleep pressure. Gentle aerobic activity, resistance training, or even consistent walking can deepen slow-wave sleep. However, vigorous exercise too close to bedtime may temporarily elevate core body temperature and sympathetic nervous system activity, delaying sleep onset. Consistency may be the most underestimated factor. The brain thrives on predictability. Going to bed and waking at different times each day confuses circadian signaling. Without regularity, melatonin release becomes inconsistent. The body struggles to anticipate rest. Over time, irregular schedules blunt the distinction between day and night, especially in older adults whose circadian systems are already more delicate. Social rhythms matter as well. Regular social interaction reinforces daily structure. Scheduled gatherings, volunteer commitments, or group activities provide temporal anchors. In their absence, days may blur together, further weakening the internal clock. The encouraging truth is that lifestyle adjustments can produce measurable improvements. Morning sunlight exposure, even 20 to 30 minutes outdoors, strengthens circadian amplitude. Establishing a consistent wake anchors the entire 24-hour cycle. Limiting naps to brief, early afternoon intervals preserves nighttime sleep pressure. Reducing evening screen light and cultivating calming pre-sleep rituals signal safety to the nervous system. The body's clock does not disappear with age, it simply requires clearer cues. When lifestyle patterns align with biological design, sleep often stabilizes without pharmacological intervention. Rhythm restores rhythm. Through intentional exposure to light, movement, nourishment, and consistency, the aging brain receives the guidance it needs to differentiate day from night, activity from rest, alertness from surrender. There is a common instinct, when sleep becomes unreliable, to search for something strong enough to force it back into place. A pill, a supplement, a single decisive solution. Yet restorative sleep in later life rarely responds to force. It responds to alignment. It improves when biology and behavior begin to move the same direction rather than against each other. The aging brain retains its capacity for rhythm, but it requires reinforcement. One of the most powerful tools is morning light. When sunlight reaches the retina, specialized cells transmit signals directly to the brain's central clock. This input recalibrates circadian timing and strengthens the distinction between day and night. For older adults, whose internal clock may have weakened amplitude, consistent early daylight exposure acts almost like a daily reset. Even on cloudy days, outdoor light far exceeds indoor illumination in intensity. That brightness stabilizes hormonal cycles, allowing melatonin to rise more predictably in the evening. Physical movement complements this effect. Exercise is not merely about muscles or cardiovascular endurance, it is a circadian signal. When the body engages in moderate activity during the day, energy metabolism increases, body temperature rises and then falls in a predictable pattern, and sleep pressure accumulates through adenosine buildup. Gentle, regular activity, walking, stretching, light resistance training, enhances slow-wave sleep without overstimulating the nervous system. Movement also reduces inflammatory markers and improves insulin sensitivity, indirectly supporting more stable nighttime physiology. Consistency serves as the framework that holds these elements together. Waking at the same time each morning anchors the entire sleep-wake cycle. The brain begins to anticipate light exposure, meals, and activity at predictable intervals. Over time, this regularity sharpens the circadian rhythm. Even if the previous night was fragmented, maintaining a stable wake time prevents drift and reinforces internal timing. Pain management is another essential dimension of alignment. Chronic discomfort keeps the nervous system in a guarded state. When pain is inadequately controlled, the brain remains partially vigilant, scanning for threat. Thoughtful strategies, whether physical therapy, anti-inflammatory approaches, optimized medication timing, or supportive bedding, reduce nocturnal arousals. The goal is not simply sedation, but physiological calm. Medication review is equally important. Many older adults take multiple prescriptions, and subtle interactions can influence sleep architecture. Adjusting the timing of stimulating medications to earlier hours, reducing unnecessary agents, or selecting alternatives with fewer sleep-disrupting effects can restore balance. This process requires collaboration with healthcare professionals who understand both pharmacology and circadian biology. Emotional regulation must also be integrated into the solution. The nervous system cannot transition into deep sleep if it perceives unresolved threat. Evening wind-down rituals create psychological safety. Soft lighting, gentle music, reflective journaling, or slow breathing exercises shift autonomic tone from sympathetic activation to parasympathetic restoration. These practices lower heart rate, reduce cortisol levels, and signal that vigilance is no longer required. Cognitive behavioral strategies have demonstrated particular effectiveness. By reshaping unhelpful beliefs about sleep, such as catastrophic interpretations of nighttime awakenings, individuals reduce anticipatory anxiety. The bed becomes associated once again with rest rather than struggle. If wakefulness persists beyond a reasonable period, briefly rising and engaging in a calm activity under dim light prevents conditioned arousal from strengthening. Environmental optimization supports the biology as well. A slightly cooler room temperature facilitates the natural drop in core body temperature necessary for sleep onset. Minimizing nighttime noise and ensuring comfortable bedding reduce micro-awakenings. For individuals with reflux, elevating the head of the bed may prevent irritation. For those with nocturia, limiting late evening fluid intake can decrease interruptions. Importantly, restorative sleep in seniors is not defined by achieving the uninterrupted 8-hour stretches of youth. It is defined by waking with adequate energy, cognitive clarity, and emotional steadiness. Some fragmentation may remain entirely normal. The objective is not perfection but resilience. There is profound reassurance in recognizing that the aging brain retains plasticity. Circadian rhythms can strengthen, sleep depth can improve. Even small behavioral adjustments, applied consistently, accumulate over weeks into measurable change. Alignment does not demand dramatic overhaul. It requires patient calibration. When biology and behavior support one another, when light, movement, structure, emotional calm, and medical stability converge, the nervous system regains trust in the night. Sleep ceases to feel like a battle and becomes once more a cooperative process between body and mind. In that alignment, restoration returns gradually, not through force, but through respect for the intricate systems that continue to function, adapt, and respond even in later decades of life.